Let's say a few things about Jacques Cartier. Jacques Cartier, who came to Canada in 1534. Tradition tells us that St. Peter went to Rome at the explicit request of our Lord. Our Lord told Peter, you go to Rome, which is the center of the Roman Empire, and you're going to be able to use all the network of the Roman roads. You go to Spain, you go to the Middle East, you go to Egypt, to Africa, you go to Northern Europe, okay? And so by going there, by being established in the center of the Roman Empire, the verbum crucis, the preaching of the cross, spread throughout the whole Roman Empire. And the church used the same principle in the course of centuries. Whenever fervent leaders, emperors, kings, discovered new lands, whenever new roads were open, and when they were Catholics, they would send priests. They would send a missionary with the sailors. They would send the cross with the ship. And they wanted, because these kings, King St. Louis IX, when he went to the Crusades, but we were going to talk about even King Henry IV of France and Louis XIII and Louis XIV. When they went and discovered new lands, when their people discovered new lands, one of the first things they did was to plant a cross. To plant a cross to show that our Lord Jesus Christ was extending his kingdom by planting a cross, and that these kings were the instruments of these Catholic, of our Lord Jesus Christ, of Christ the King. And that is what Jacques Cartier did. Here you see on this map, you see the three trips, the three journeys of Jacques Cartier. He came the first time in 1534. So the first trip, you can see here, it is in purple. He went around Newfoundland and went to New Brunswick, okay, and back above Newfoundland. That was his first trip, 1534. During the first trip, he planted this cross. It's famous that he did plant a cross. And these are his own words, which we read in his relation. I have it here. 1 second. Here it is. On the 24th of the month, it was July 1534, we built a cross of 30 feet in height in the presence of many of the natives. A cross upon which was written in large letters, "Long live the King of France." They were watching us, making and erect the same cross on the tip of the land. After lifting it up in the air, we all knelt down with joined hands, and adoring it in front of them, we made some signs, like pointing to heaven, looking at and showing them heaven, making them understand that through the cross was our salvation. Through this, you go to heaven. They repeatedly look with wonder towards the cross. So Jacques Cartier established plants this cross in Gaspé, in the bay of the St. Lawrence River. The cross which is there at this site, I think there'll be a long trip though, if ever you want to go and see the cross. There is the site where the cross was planted, where it still is. And so This is how 16th century France appeared in the New World. They're coming with a sign, with a symbol. And that sign of the whole religion is a cross. These little crucifixes we have in our houses that we wear around our neck is the sign of a whole civilization. We have to remember that because they could not speak the language. So they spoke with signs, and a cross is a sign. In his second trip, he went further down the St. Lawrence River, and he discovered it was a river. At first he thought they were looking for the way to go to China. They thought with the tides that it was maybe the junction between the two oceans, but he realized, no, it's a river. And he himself says that here it is. The day he arrived, the day he realized it was a river, as an explorer, his first question is, what are we going to name it? We have to give a name. Explorers want to give names, okay? And you see there, here's also a very interesting detail on their state of mind. How will they find a name? Well, these people are Catholic. And their first reflex is, what feast is this today? And it was August 10th. They say, it's August 10th. Oh, let's call it St. Lawrence. August 10th. So the day they realized it was a river, we're talking about exploring. St. Lawrence is a big thing. The day they realized it was a river, they say, okay, we're going to name it St. Lawrence. And then he found out he had these three ships, the Great Ermine, the Little Ermine, and the Emerillon. They arrived, we can see here on the map. They arrived, so they went down. The St. Lawrence was called the Great River of Canada, but when they arrived in the bay, they went down and they found this little settlement, which the native says, come to Canada, Canada, Canada. They made signs. Canada means a settlement. It was their settlement, which they called Canada. And you can see on this old map of the early 1600s, you can see here written Canada. Here's Quebec. Quebec is right here, Quebec, right here. And Canada is this little village, Stadaconta, called by the Indians, okay? And that became the name of our country, that little Indian settlement. So he arrived there, he saw Quebec. He said, that would be okay. And he went down. The second trip, he went all the way down to Montreal. That's 1535. And when he arrived in Montreal, on the island of Hochelaga, that was the name of, it was not called Montreal, it was called Hochelaga. Listen to what the relation, what he says in his report. Jacques Cartier himself, seeing the good dispositions of the natives, what did he say to them? He read to them the last gospel that we have at Mass. He made a sign of the cross because the Indians noticed that these foreigners were good people. And they brought to them their sick people, thinking they could help them, heal them. So, and it is something we find in the ritual, in the Roman ritual. Occasionally the church tells the priest over a sick person, read the last gospel of Mass. St. Francis Xavier did that in India over the sick. And sometimes there was miracles because it's by the power of the incarnation. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So Jacques Cartier says, seeing the faith and the piety of this people, he read the Gospel of St. John, made the sign of the cross himself on the sick people, praying God to give them knowledge of our holy faith and of the passion of our Lord, and the grace to discover Christendom and baptism. And he read to them the passion of our Lord, showing heaven. Okay? Most of these sailors were from Brittany, where Father Guéguin comes from. Okay, Brittany. So we are in 1535, the second trip. In that second trip, so it's 1535, 1536, in that second trip, they're getting sick. They're hit by scurvy. And they were, how many were they? There were a few dozens, but 25, no, there were over 100. 25 die of scurvy. And at the end, in the middle of February, it's looking very, very bad. So Jacques Cartier makes a vow to Our Lady of Rocamadour. He makes a vow. That's near Bordeaux in France, in the south of France. It's a famous shrine. Last August 2017, the Canadian group, they were when we planned the pilgrimage to Fatima in 2017. After Fatima, we were supposed to go to Saint Compostela, to Lourdes, and to Rocamadour. It was in the original plan, but we had to cancel it in order to go to Nevers and Paris. But if ever you go to France in the southwest, you have this Rocamadour, which is the place where Zacchaeus' relics are. Europe is great, So Rocamadour. And in this place, you can see the plaque here. So in February 1536, Jacques Cartier and his companions, suffering from scurvy, regained their health after having made a vow to Our Lady of Rocamadour near the Léré River in New France. And when they came back to France, they went on pilgrimage to Rocamadour to say thank you. And there's a plaque, I could not find it, but there's a plaque, there's a mention of Jacques Cartier in that shrine in France. And Our Lady helped them. Soon after they made the vows, the Indians brought them some herbal mixtures, some teas or whatever they drank, and they probably had some vitamin C in the plants, and they were able to survive the winter. Okay. So that was the second trip. Third trip was 1541. The third trip, it was during that third trip that, I forgot to say, in the second trip, when he went to Hochelaga, which is Montreal, he climbed a mountain, Mount Royal, and he called the island Mount Royal. Having seen the beauty of it, it was in October. I see here what I have here. Okay. Mons Realis, Mount Royal. Because it was just maybe if it was like in autumn with all the colors of the forest, this is gorgeous. This is extraordinary. So this is a royal mountain. So here's the royal mountain. Later on, 100 years later, it will be like rebaptized or Ville Marie, Mary City. Okay. It was during the third trip that he found around Quebec, he found what he thought were diamonds. Diamonds and other precious stones. And he brought them back to France in 1542. They analyzed them and they said, these are no diamonds. They were quartz. But that is why it's called Cap Diamant, because he thought it was called the Cape of the Diamonds. And the expression appeared in France at that time. I've never really heard it here in Quebec or here in French Canada. Okay, faux comme un diamant de Québec, un diamant du Canada. It is fake as a Canadian diamond. It's an expression in France. This is junk, This is not real thing. This is fake like a Canadian diamond. That false, or the discovery of these quartz rather than diamonds, problems with the French king, financial issues, problems in France, led to interrupt the exploration for another almost 60 years. So that's why 1542, there's a blank, there's a gap, and we will resume in 1603. So our history is, and although it's something to understand, and when Jacques Cartier came down the St. Lawrence River, he did say he saw a lot of Indian settlements along the river. And when Champlain came back 60 years later, they were all gone. They were all gone because of the Iroquois, because of fighting among the tribes. And we have to remember that.